Welcome to the Performance Talk podcast. I'm your host, Jay, and today I have not only an esteemed but great legend in the living, Willy T. Ribs here at Performance Talk. How are you doing, good sir?
Well, when we opened up our conversation, I said I've got a pulse.
Yes,
and that's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
With it and go to sleep with it.
That is a good thing. Anytime you do that means you got an opportunity to keep being great, which you are. So let's just start this off with just a few things that people should know. All right. And you correct me along the way if any of them need to be corrected. Am I correct in saying first black man in Formula Ford champion?
Yes.
I am correct in saying that. All right.
That is correct.
By the way, clinched early because of points?
Yeah, I did. And I'm glad we did because I was about out of money. You know, I was in England.
Right.
And running the Dunlop Championship. And it was for young drivers.
Okay.
Drivers just cutting their teeth to advance into the next level, which would have been Formula 3 or 2, and eventually Formula 1.
All right. And then we got Trans Am Rookie of the Year.
Yes.
Of course, you also won a Constructors Championship.
Yes.
You also top 3 in IMSA finishes, top 3 in IMSA.
Top 3 in IMSA, but two-time driver of the year.
Two-time driver of the year, 2021 inductee to Long Beach Grand Prix, correct? Hall of Fame?
Yes. Yes.
You just had a birthday not too long ago, so belated happy birthday.
Yeah. And last year, inducted in the Trois Rivières Grand Prix Hall of Fame.
Also. Okay.
And San Jose Sports Hall of Fame. That's everything. That's all sports.
All sports.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. Let me say this, okay, because Willy T has an extreme amount of accolades that you have accomplished through your time. But to me, some of the most important things, people come into a sport, right? And sometimes they do things in a sport that revolutionize, changes that sport. To me, I feel like you've done way more than that. All right. Today is a wish for me. Honestly, a wish come true. Like I told you before, I never got a chance to talk to Dr. Martin Luther King. I never got a chance to talk to Fred Hampton, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, any of Muhammad Ali, any of the people that I feel have done things so great in life where they changed the way I could live my life in this generation. And you did that, not only in racing, but you affected the way that people that look like me can say, I could do that. You broke down barriers. You laid pathway. You are a trailblazer for even people such as great as Lewis Hamilton, who's went on to just do some awesome things. And for the things that you've done, for the things that you've endured, for the challenges that you overcame, from all the situations that tried to kick you down and keep you out, I just want to say I thank you for that. I thank you for not quitting. On behalf of my community, I want to thank you also for that. And I just appreciate everything that you've done that will benefit me, looking my daughter in the face as she's in her second karting season and just telling her that it is possible, baby, for you to do that. And for me to be able to show her you and your accomplishments and her to identify and say it is possible. I do thank you, good sir.
Well, I used to say to my team after we won a race, when they said thank you, I said thank you for thanking me. So, sometimes when you're young, you don't know any better. Sometimes there's obstacles that are put up in front of you that you don't know any better not quit. Right? Right. There was never one time that I thought I was going to give up or quit. My grandpa would have kicked my ass if I would have laid down and quit. It just wasn't in the DNA. And, and I was raised old school, very old school. You didn't complain. You didn't play the victim. You victimized them for trying to obstruct you. You kicked their ass. And with me at that time, doing what I was doing, I always knew that I could win. I always knew that I had the talent to win. And when I went to England and won my first championship straight away, there was no second guessing. I had no second guesses as to whether I could win further. and keep winning and get to the top. I didn't realize how difficult it was going to be, but I didn't give a damn how difficult it was going to be.
So I got a question for you. You mentioned your grandfather, very accomplished man, especially in those times. Definitely businessman, very headstrong man, and definitely somebody, like you said, you had to pass a certain test if you wanted to know what you were going to do. Not too long before that, it was pretty much illegal for Black people to read and write. So here it is, Willy T is telling his family that you're going to use college money to start a racing career. What was that? How did that conversation go?
It's pretty simple. I told him what I was going to do. And my dad, fortunately, my dad understood auto racing. He did it as a hobby. My grandfather hated it because it was spinning up a lot of the business money and that he had built. All right. And he started his company in 1927. 1927 is when he started Ribs Plumbing and Heating and Mechanical. So, and he did well. But by the time World War II was over, his business was booming because of all the GIs coming back, and the building boom took off in California. Gotcha. So, financially, we were well off. We were in very good shape. I didn't want to work for my dad because, he took over the business, him and my uncle, from my grandfather. And I just told my dad, and if it wasn't for my dad's hobby, I would have never known motorsports. I would have never known. It was his hobby. By the time I was 9 years old, I knew what I wanted my career to be. So he bought me go-karts, he bought me racing motorcycles, and I started learning how to the competition side, start building my talents, right? And so that's how it started. I knew what I wanted to do. When I told them that I wanted to go to England and start my racing career, there was pretty much no discussion other than, okay, what's your plan?
Okay.
So I told them my plan, and my mom endorsed it. She says, "You're going," and it was that easy.
Really, I did not expect that. Oh, I honestly did not expect that.
My dad was actually skeptical. He thought I was going to go over there and party and chase girls, right? Yeah. Right. I almost said cat, another name for a cat. But
right. That's why I cut your poon. I got you.
Yeah, right. So, but he thought I was going to go over there and do that. And my mom knew better. My mom said, I know he's going there to start his racing career. Okay. And when I called home after I won my first race, it was all validated. It was all validated.
It was all valid. So let's catch this up. So you got the college money, you go overseas, you show up because you're going to go in for Scorpion Racing, that Scorpion Racing team. You show up to this farm, Mike Eastick.
Yeah, Mike Eastick.
And world will know to me why he would think you were only there to be a farmhand. Why he thought a black man showing up to him would just want to be a farmhand. It's just been, just kind of baffles me, right? But you're not. You get there. And I did notice that there were 3 more races in that season where you had no points. So with you saying that, had you not clinched early, were you not going to be able to continue that season out, or was there another reason why you didn't compete in those last 3 races?
Oh, I would have actually. I don't know if it was the last 3. I think it was 1 or 2 races, but I had so much points that I couldn't be caught. I had set such a big gap. If we were still fighting for that championship, Mike Eastick would have been let's go.
Okay.
We didn't have to. So why spend the money? And by then, Mike Eastick was paying for it out of his own pocket. I ran out of money halfway through the season.
Whoa, okay.
Halfway through the season. And I told Mike, I said, look, where things are getting skinny. And he said, well, we're leading the championship, and I want you to win it, and I want to win it. So just don't crash the car and cost us more money, and we'll keep going. And we did. And no, he stick from the time I walked in and knocked on the door at his ranch, because he had a huge ranch. He was half farmer and half race team owner.
Okay.
And he had a big barn full of race cars and another big barn full of tractors. So when I knocked on the door, he says, how you doing? I said, yeah, I come to talk to you about, driving one of your race cars. And he says, wow, I thought you were here to get a job on my farm. I said, no. I said, the vehicle I'm going to drive goes real fast. It's not one of your tractors, right? So, we did a deal in about 2 hours, and I spent 2 hours with him. And he right from the beginning, he gave me what it took to win. Okay. Right from the start.
Right from the start.
But after my fourth race, and my fourth race was a great one because it was against Nigel Mansell, former Lord. And Michael Rowe. There's some great drivers, all young. And after the race, I ended up finishing second. Rowe won it, me, then Mansell. And we had dinner that night after the race.
Okay.
And he said, oh, by the way, he says, what kind of racing did you do in America before you came here? I said, none. and he had, I was glad he had a glass of scotch in his hand, because he took a drink and he said, well, what do you mean none? I said, none. None. I've never raced. I went through driver's school in America, but I never raced in America. And he took another hit on that drink, and he says, well, I'm glad too many of you Yanks are not coming over here pulling that on me like you just did. And he had no idea, because they weren't kind of checking. There was no records.
Right. Exactly.
Right? And so after that, he had even more respect for my driving talent. After that dinner, after that night, after that fourth race, and that was the same day that I met Bernie Ecclestone. Okay. At Brands Hatch, that same day. And then that night, Eastick and I were having dinner, and he told me, well, I told him what my history was. And he said, wow, he says, you'll be in Formula One in 6 months.
At this rate. But that
Yeah.
doesn't happen. And I remember you saying in the documentary Uppity, which if any of you have not seen it, you need to go check it out, download it, stream it, watch it. It is beyond awesome. You were saying that a lot of the drivers were sponsored by their country, and you did not have that. Was there ever a conversation for you to get some type of sponsorship from the United States of America at that point in time?
Well, the government doesn't sponsor drivers now. Drivers from Brazil, like Emerson Fittipaldi, for example, or Nelson Piquet, the time when I was there, they had companies inside their country that supported them.
Correct.
It wasn't the government, it was corporate companies inside their country, where there was a Brazilian company, or a company from Argentina or Colombia. They always had support. I had no American support at all. And, it was all family money. And people like Mike Eastick, who went into their pocket, to make it happen for me.
That is wild to see that type of talent. So let me just ask you this. I know over there it's I'm not, you know, they called you Yank or whatever the case may be, but was there no interest at all, even over there, to hitch to a talent like yours to just take you and allow you to do the great things that you damn well could have done?
I suppose there could have been another team owner or some corporate uh, British companies that could have been involved, but I was new.
Hmm.
I was brand new. I was winning when Lewis Hamilton's dad was a teenager.
Mm.
Okay, and Lewis was far from being born, and I was a novelty in one sense, and a groundbreaker in another. What I didn't get was any pushback
Okay.
over there. Okay,
Okay.
when I came back to the United States, I ran into nothing but walls and
Right.
resentment, fear, just outright fear, and that was the obstacle that I didn't have to deal with over there.
Okay. So let's get to that because now you're over there, you set off, go over there, Formula One, Formula Ford champion. You do that, right? Like you've accomplished something, like we said, that probably no American had at the time, especially a black man like yourself does. You come back over here with a pretty good resume to start. You get your start in Formula Atlantic, which is somewhere, I guess, like a cross between Formula over there and Formula Atlantic over here. It's kind of like a medium. It kind of
It's
meets
right. It's sort of in between
in between.
Formula Ford, then Formula Atlantic, and then Formula One.
Got you. Okay,
Right.
so you're starting this up. Now you get there, your first drivers meet, nobody wants to look at you for reasons that we already know. Racism is abundant. They don't want to see you there. They don't want to see you in what
They
they would call
were
their sport.
absolutely terrified,
So
and that wasn't my observation. That was observation from one of the top mechanics in Formula One by the name of Alan McCall, who was Jimmy Clark's mechanic. And Alan was a great friend of mine and the family's. Well, he was at that drivers' meeting with me. And when we walked out of the meeting, he looked at me, he says, and those guys all look like a bunch of scared monkeys. That's exactly how, quote, close quote, what he said to me.
mm,
And I just laughed about it. But they were just, it was amazing not, hey, welcome home, uh,
right.
congratulations, none of that, none of it.
That's
Because
wild.
that, when I came back, the Long Beach Grand Prix Formula Atlantic race was my first race in America,
Okay.
my very first race, back from England, champion. And
Right.
it was really I mean, it didn't bother me, the sort of the reception, but I looked at them like, so you guys
So
got,
at that point in time, would you have one race, right? And that was it. And
that was it.
so why the one rate? What happened? Was it money again? Was it
It was
backing?
always, it was more money, and my career, as far as racing concerned, there's probably no other sport that, or one of the few sports that is dependent on finance
Okay.
and corporate sponsors. It is, you're not going to win anything. And even if you get a little bit, it's not. It takes money to win. Winning costs money. And the guys who had it usually won. So I got bits and pieces here to 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 race about. I might have done 10 Formula Atlantic races in my career.
See, Willie, this is my problem with this. You did more with less. All right, because what was it? It's 82. You go back to Formula Atlantic, right? You're in front of Bernie again. You're in front of Andretti. You're in front
The
of
whole racing,
the
the whole
whole
racing world.
Exactly.
Was
The
in
whole
Long
racing
Beach in
world.
1982. Right.
Exactly. You take a car to pole with pretty much no time, no practice, no. You take the in subpar machinery at that. How how is it that people can say there's anything else besides for the color of your skin? Because it can't be your talent, it can't be your work ethic, it can't be your mentality. You've done more with less. If anybody else fairer skinned would have done that, there would have been people that would have jumped behind it like that.
Right. Right. Right now. And when I did it, I had a half a day's practice in the car.
That's what I'm talking about.
Half a day. And then went straight in and put it and qualified on the pole. And there were some great drivers in that race by the name of Michael Andretti and Al Unser Jr. and Jeff Bratt, Roberto Norino, Price Cobb. All those young drivers were trying to perform in front of Formula One, because that was a Formula One race. We were the undercard.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wanted to look good. I put it on pole and pulled away till the engine failed. Right.
Right.
And nothing. Absolute nothing. No response from
no response at all. Nothing.
No response at all. And I didn't have what got Lewis Hamilton where he is today was a guy named Ron Dennis, who was a great team owner, world champion, Formula One world champion team owner with Ayrton Senna. Ron Dennis took his money and groomed and made Lewis Hamilton a Formula One champion. Took him from go-karts as a kid right up to Formula 2, 3, all the levels that Lewis had to go through.
Correct.
Get to the top. Ron Dennis financed it right into his own Formula One team. Ron Dennis just got knighted a few days ago by the Queen, or by the King of England. He was just knighted. And I said years ago, I said it to the media, I said, if there's one guy that should be knighted,
it should be him.
Ron Dennis. I said it years ago. Well, he just got knighted.
Well, congratulations,
just for what
Ron
he
Dennis.
Did.
Right.
What he did for Lewis Hamilton. He put his money where his mouth, and I didn't have that.
Okay.
I didn't have, but see, a guy like Ron Dennis understands racing so well. But a guy like Roger Penske, he could have done it. He could have done the same thing with me that he did with Rick Mears and some of his other drivers. Brought Rick Mears out of the dunes. Rick Mears was a dirt racer, off-road racer. Made him a champion.
Right.
Roger could have did the same thing. He didn't, because they have a network. Mm-hmm. They have a network inside racing. It's very close, and they all talk with each other.
Got you.
They all say, hey, you're going to run. You ain't going to take that Negro, are you?
Right.
That's the kind word.
Right. That was the very kind.
That was the kind word. Right.
That's not the word you got through your journey.
Yeah, I didn't get that. Right. So it was really Paul Newman. The end of 1982, I qualified on the pole at Long Beach in April of 82. And 2 days before Thanksgiving, in November of 82, I get a call from Paul Newman, and he says, I got a deal for you.
Right. Your first paid deal on top of that, right? Right.
First paid deal. He says, it's not in Formula Atlantic. It's not an open wheel car. It's in Trans Am Championship. And if you want it, it's a done deal. That's if you want it. I've already done it. And so I said, well, if you recommend it, I'll do it.
Right.
So I jumped into a car that I was totally unfamiliar with. Totally. Much bigger car, much more
horsepower.
More horsepower, heavier, bigger, straight away. I was
just a tank.
Straight away. I was the fastest guy out there.
So let me
Straight
ask you
away.
this before we get there. Before we get there, you get a call from Humpy Wheeler. All right.
Yeah, that was
NASCAR.
1978.
Right. So he's calling you to coming into NASCAR. Do you think you get that call from Humpy if there's not a financial motivation to pull money from the black community? Do you think you get that call from Humpy if it's just purely trying to get, you know what, I see a black driver. I see a driver. He's black, but he's good. And I want to bring him here because his talent and his ability can showcase here. Or do you think you don't get that call if there's no financial motivation from the black community? Just your opinion.
In the case of every African American athlete, unless it's financially advantageous for those who are making the phone call, they're not making the phone call. That goes to today.
Even to today.
Even to today.
Okay.
Okay. It's not because we have beautiful skin.
Not the melanin.
No. I think Humpy saw a lot more attention.
Okay.
For his event. He saw, because I was already making headlines.
Right.
So he saw attention, and maybe he saw. I don't think African Americans at that time were still comfortable for buying tickets to go to a NASCAR race
with Confederate flags and KKK
everywhere.
members in the crowd. I don't doubt it.
Everywhere. Oh yeah, they were everywhere, and so I don't think he thought it was going to be any big financial gain with ticket sales. What I do think, and it's what he would have gotten and was getting, was media attention.
Media attention.
Oh, yeah.
So him getting media attention, you're here getting called in the N-word, you're getting spit in your direction, and you're getting death threats. All right. Do you think Humpy decides to continue on with you racing if he doesn't get any death threats? Let's say his hide's not on the line at all. He doesn't get one phone call. He goes to sleep, wakes up. Do you think he still goes ahead with it if he doesn't get a call like that?
I don't think that was the call that was scaring him the most.
Oh yeah?
The death threats that he was getting, that he said he was getting. I think what scared him the most was maybe NASCAR pulling his race.
That's a point. That's a big hit.
Right. They don't get a race. They don't get a sanctioned race unless NASCAR gives it to them.
Yeah, that's heavy.
So, right. So they're probably, I would not have been shocked if they made the phone call and said, it's him or us.
Okay.
Would not shock me.
Say it would not shock me.
And I know this industry inside and out.
Yes, sir.
I know, I was born into the sport. I know the politics of NASCAR, IndyCar, and Formula One.
Yes, sir.
Grew up in it, got a PhD in it. So there's no way that they can hoodwink me with any horse shit narrative and try to spin it in my direction as if I was the reason.
The reason.
Right. Don't even.
If you could briefly explain to the audience, what does a card carrying member mean? Because some people hear that and they might not really understand what that means. Because the steward, I believe the director steward at that race that you were going to compete in for Humpy was a card carrying member. What does that mean?
It was not his race.
It wasn't his race.
It was Talladega, Alabama.
Talladega. So that steward there, what does that mean?
A card carrying member, and that's an old school terminology of
true
KKK, the three Ks, right?
3 Ks.
Now, I don't know if Bill Gasaway, who was the chief steward of NASCAR at the time, was a card carrying member, but he sure acted like one. Okay, he acted. He was absolutely as nasty and vile towards me as anyone I'd ever come in contact with in the sport.
Damn.
That and probably half the people that I came in contact with had that same vile
mentality.
Yeah, that hate look on their face.
You can just see it.
I haven't done a thing to them, but you could also see the fear too. But
Understood.
on the other side of that was guys like Bobby Allison, for example, great human being. Harry Gant, great human being. Michael Waltrip. There were some dry, even Dale Earnhardt Sr.
I remember you saying something about that.
Yeah, good. But they're not going to overrule.
Exactly. They're not finna go against that big wave.
They can't fight that.
No.
They're trying to be. They don't want to get. They don't want to get their nuts chopped.
Correct.
For outwardly or openly supporting Willy T. Rips.
Correct.
But towards me, they
treated you fair.
Very, very fair. I had one of my greatest races ever with Bobby Allison, and just awesome. A dirt race in Kansas. Never been on dirt before. I led half the race. I led half the race.
So this Bobby, happens time after time, right? You get in, you've never done it before, and you
never been before, right? And a lot of the West Coast media. I was doing an interview a week after the race in Portland. They had to call Harry Gant because they didn't believe what I had said to the media. When I got there, I said, well, I had a great race, never been on dirt before, and had a great race against Bobby Allison and Joe Ruttman and the guys. They called Harry Gant to verify, and Harry Gant said, everything he's saying is true. Harry Gant told the media, everything Willy T is telling you happened. So I don't forget that because, there's been a lot of pushback from the industry, but then there were some inside the industry that were white, like Paul Newman, like Jim Truman.
Right, like Jim Truman.
Right, that absolutely, and they were powerful enough to say, fuck you guys. Excuse my language, audience.
No, you good. I'm a Navy man.
Okay, but that was, they pushed back against people who were pushing me back. Indeed.
Okay, so let me ask you about this, because somebody else, because we were going to get into this about the relationships that you had that were very, how can I put it, precious and priceless relationships that were built on character and integrity. And you talked about Paul Newman, which he's a Navy man, so hoorah to that. Jim Truman, which honestly, his motto just wows me, and we'll talk to that. But you also had a relationship with Muhammad Ali. And what I want to ask you in reference to that is this: Muhammad Ali was already fighting for his own livelihood in this country as a black man, as a boxer, doing what's right. You saw many other things in your time of growing up, black people coming up, trying to do the right thing, getting their lives taken. Muhammad Ali had lost a friend in Malcolm X due to assassination. He's going through all this. You're watching this man try to fight for his boxing career and his livelihood. And meanwhile, you're doing the same in the face of racism, trying to get a career, and everybody's trying to push you down. Not everybody, but there are people trying to push you down due to the color of your skin. How and what in your mind keeps you getting up when they're trying to knock you down and pushing forward in an industry that just blatantly says they don't want you? They're not even ready for your greatness, because I feel like they weren't ready for the greatness of Willy T. Ribbs. And I lightweight feel robbed myself from being able to see where you were going. How did you continue to push on beyond that after so much adversity?
When I met Ali in London, and we were running through Hyde Park together. We were jogging through Hyde Park, just me and him. He said to me, you kind of crazy. I said, how so? you know who you dealing with? I said, yeah. He says, well, unless you let them beat you, they can't beat you.
Mm.
So, you know what they tried to do to me? He says, just remember, they didn't beat me. And they're not going to beat you if you don't let them. You do not turn the other cheek. You do not buckle down. You do not kowtow. He said, you keep your foot in their ass.
Full wide open throttle.
Yes. And you know, and I had that. Plus, you know, I had enough support, not just family support, because you know, I mean, my mom and Henry was the tough guy. He was just he had no patience for accepting defeat. He had no patience for for complaining or having emotional mental problem. You know,
Right.
there was no such thing as mental health issues.
No.
He was born in 1899.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay,
definitely not.
the Titanic sunk in 1912. Okay, so he had no patience for that. And
Right.
if you and when we were kids growing up, I mean, he kept you busy on that ranch. Either
Right.
you work in a family business or you were on the ranch. And if you looked like you weren't busy enough, he had a 100-foot ditch for you to dig.
Talking
Oh,
about some work.
he'd had you shoveling, digging ditches for fence lines and sprinkler lines, and that was his method of handling mental
Handling business.
depression. Not pills, a shovel.
Work.
Right, work. And so with that kind of upbringing, dealing with those people that I was dealing with really wasn't that
Wasn't
hard.
much of nothing. Right.
Oh, that wasn't that hard at all. Yeah, I mean, you guys think you guys are bad hats. You guys, you know, you don't know. They don't know toughness.
Right.
And so the toughest part, and I wish African Americans in this country and people of color and all the people that follow the sport or follow me or learn is that it was the companies in this country. It was the manufacturers. You name them. All the car manufacturers and auto supply manufacturers and oil companies, they're the ones that turn their back on me. They're the ones. They're the ones that take trillions, billions, and trillions of dollars over decades, right? Take it. Those are the ones who never gave back and say, hey, you know what? This is important. This is important for our country. This is important for the sport. All this dialogue about DEI and people that are building their name attacking DEI, meaning and creating hate in this country, right?
Yes, sir.
The individuals are coming out of the woodwork like cockroaches. They're attacking. Okay, there was no such thing as DEI when I was racing. That acronym was not invented. There was no such thing as diversity, equity, inclusion when I was racing.
No,
right? I was it. Right?
You were ground zero.
Right. I was ground zero, and there was no title. Okay. I busted my ass and I won. Right? They can't attack me. I am right now Formula One's diversity, equity, and inclusion ambassador for Formula One, the biggest racing sport on the planet.
In the world. Right.
I am an ambassador for them.
All right.
I dare them to come after me. Because one of the guys, his name is Chris Rufo. Rufo went after Dr. Claudine Gay. Harvard president. He attacked her.
Mhm.
Now, here's a guy with a hair lip. Ever seen his face, Christopher Rufo? He's got a hair lip.
Got the hair lip. Right.
Okay. And the guy attacked her, and they took her out. And they used a ploy called plagiarism, which they all do, right?
Right.
And took her out. This kid attacks DEI, this Rufo.
Mm-hmm.
I was winning races when he was seagull shitting his daddy's testicles.
That's pretty young.
I know you can visualize that, right?
I can.
Okay. And so I'm not for any company to roll over against absolute hate, because that's really, there's fear. It's cowardice. You're a coward.
True. Facts.
Right? You're scared and you're a coward. So you're going to attack those who've been pushed down, who've been kept down, right? And that have crawled in, and who are qualified to do it, more qualified than they are. And you're going to attack them. And the industries and institutions that are trying to make this country better. Hey, I'm here. Come after me.
Come on with it.
Come to me. Okay.
Well, Willy T said he's out to smoke.
Oh yeah, I will make you cry. I'll make them cry, because they'll be less. They're already less than a man now.
Right. With those type of character traits, definitely.
They'll be the size of a mouse when I get finished with them.
Quiet. So
yeah, right.
So let me ask you this, because you talked about big companies that didn't support you. But I do have a question for you. I wonder if you had the moment back, would you do it different? You step into Trans Am, and like everything else you've stepped into, you take off. I mean, because to me, you're a phenom. You just take off. You get into a situation with a team where you are titled the number 2 driver, and you're in a championship contention, which you haven't won in the States yet as far as a driver. Like, you got the Formula Ford overseas, you come here and you're about to get it. I just got to know, Willy T, what was going through your mind? Like, what kind of situations were going where you took a powder to just and conceded that championship to David Hobbs? Like, what made you kind of succumb to that? He approached you as you left the pits. Was there ever a moment where you were going to be like, I'm just not going to do it?
I knew my future was on the line. All right. And that was my first year.
Yes.
That was my rookie year. The industry, many in the industry, did not want me there in the first place. So I'm thinking, and see, they create their own narratives. The team owners, the sport, they create their own narratives. So I'm thinking insubordination. Would there ever be a phone call to that team owner? Oh, well, how's Willy T? He doesn't listen to shit. He doesn't follow orders, right? So I was looking at it from a long-term strategic side, right? I knew I had to do it, because if not, I would not have been renewed. My contract would have been renewed the next year. So, and Hobbs knew, the industry knew that I was the top dog in the team, because a week later we went to Las Vegas.
And I'm talking, you blew him.
I lapped him.
Blew him out the water.
So the industry knew who the top dog in the team was, and it was the rookie, and his name was Willy T. Rips. And so I did it, and I knew that I was the guy, but I had to be a lamb, sacrificial lamb.
Man, Willie, I'm not gonna lie, it ate me up because I knew they took something from you that inevitably you had worked for. And I figured that was going to be it, but I said I gotta ask him because I don't want to assume, but I figured that was what it was going to be. You were going to be in a situation, you just got there, and if you don't do it, you get it. But then what comes after that? Are you back to the farm? Are you back driving this van again? And to put a man in that situation is completely it's frustrating for me, even myself, to think about it.
I was the black driver in their mind. I was this, even though I was the fastest driver.
Still couldn't get away from being black and driving.
Exactly. I was still number two, right? So, but it wasn't long after that. The next race was Vegas. I won. Mm-hmm. And then the season was over. And the very first race of the new year, 1984, in Atlanta, I was fired by that team.
Yes.
Right? Fired before the race started because I had a confrontation on the warm-up with another driver.
Right.
The team didn't defend me. The team defended the other driver and fired me. And the opposing driver, not my teammate, a driver from a different team. I really knew how strong I was because I was fired on Monday before the race started. On Monday, I got a call from Edsel Ford. Right? I flew home from Atlanta Sunday night. Monday morning, I got a phone call. It was that phone call that told me I was the best guy in the sport.
Right.
I was the best guy in that championship series.
Ray Charles could see that.
Yeah, that's right. And Stevie Wonder was backing him up. Right. So I knew when I got that call, that was the message. You're the best guy. And we want you to race for us. And Ford hired me pretty much on the spot.
On the spot.
That blew the industry's mind. Because on Sunday, they thought he's gone.
Right. But you weren't.
Right. No more scared. We're not scared anymore. Monday. And then it was announced a few days later that I was with Ford.
That's
and the
a turn of events.
Rippled. And one of Chevrolet's big dogs called Ford because Ford told me this. Called SVRA, not SVRA, SVO, Special Vehicles. Called the head of Special Vehicles and said to him, "I heard you're hiring Willy T." And he said in his German accent, "Yes, we hiring him. We think he's going to be a good fit for us." And the guy said, "You're making a big mistake."
Whoa.
I was told that by Ford. You're making a big mistake. Yeah, it was a mistake because I kicked their ass from all year long. Right after that, I whipped them. I beat them. We beat them in the manufacturers championship, which is what Ford wanted.
Right.
They wanted that manufacturer's title over Chevrolet.
And they ain't get it.
They didn't get it. So they still remind me of that when I see them.
Do they?
Oh yeah. They said, you put it on us.
Right. Well, you could have told them, hey, you had the problem circled the whole time.
Right.
It was. So let me ask you, we talked about manufacturers not backing you. You had a relationship. Bill Cosby comes in. He says you deserve the opportunity because you've earned it just like other drivers have, but you're not getting it. But not even Bill Cosby can get Coke to come and support you. You come to a team, Miller leaves. You got sponsors willing to leave a team just because Willy T's black and he's in the seat. Jello can't come. But you end up getting a contractual deal with promoter Don King, by the way, which the first contract, I'm very glad that you didn't sign that. I am definitely happy that you stood up to Don King and his lawyer, whomever, and got the paperwork right. But Don King's initial move to put you in with the Sherman Armstrong team probably was not the best fit for you. However, I'm going to say this from my opinion, and then you can walk it up the way it is because you factually know. I took it as almost an attack on your life, Willie, for the neglect and the negligence that they had going on inside of that team when you got in the Indy for that first time. I felt like certain portions of the team would have been okay if had you ended up with a wall and never climbed out of that cockpit ever again, never climbed out of that seat ever again. That's the way I felt by looking at some of the things that were in place. How did you feel? Because they, like you said, they murdered you in the public. They sacrificed you in the public, and some people, if they don't do their research, would think that, oh, Willie T could never stand up to the speed. He could only get so far. How did you feel? Because that's how I took it.
Your observation is correct. It's correct. I knew that. And Don King meant well. Don didn't know anywhere. Don doesn't know the difference between a spark plug and a front tire. Okay, he doesn't know, but he meant well. And what Don is great at is making deals.
Gift of gab, right?
Yeah, he's a great deal maker when it comes to putting money together and budgets together. He did that. What he didn't know was the team. I didn't know the team that well until I got there.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, see, what they were banking on is, hey, he's dumb, he's black, he doesn't know it, he doesn't know the technical or the mechanical side of this business. He's not, they have their stereotype image.
Right.
I popped their bubble again. I knew almost right away that this is not going to go well. I knew it. And I walked away from it because that's how much I knew about the sport, right? And especially the technical side. So, and I was attacked for it.
Yes.
I was attacked for walking away. I was attacked. No other driver that decided, and that includes Juan Manuel Fangio, who tested an Indy car, 5-time world champion. He said, no, it's not for me. They didn't attack him, but they attacked me.
It's attacked you.
Right. And, but,
so
they lost, and they lost that one again.
Right. That was another one. They tried to get over on you.
Yeah, they tried to, right. They lost that battle because I came back in 91.
Right.
And did it with less money, but with a better team.
And I'm gonna say that I got a question to ask you about that right after I asked you this question, because coming back to 91, it was still Bill Cosby financially was behind you for CART, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so in this situation, because you've already had plenty
CART
of others
and IndyCar.
And IndyCar.
And the 500.
Okay, so Bill Cosby was riding with you.
Every race I did in IndyCar, including the Indy 500,
yes,
for 3.5 years, was all Cosby.
Okay.
All Cosby. Service merchandise was on the car, but that was a quid pro quo deal that Cosby did. Cosby traded off some ad spots,
right,
and some commercial spots for that money.
Okay.
For that support from Service Merchandise.
Okay. And for those who don't know, Service Merchandise used to be a company that was like, they sold electronics, they sold all types of stuff. It was your Best Buys before you had Best Buys and some.
Exactly.
So you had a situation that occurred, and I don't want to go so much into the situation more than try to get your mind frame of a driver and how you get through this. You had a situation, I believe it was in 90. You're on track, a stall car. Marshals come onto the track for the stall car. You're coming around the track. Marshals run in front of your car. You end up colliding with them. One of the marshals loses their life. How does a driver go through something like that and then not let it impact them any further than to diminish your skills? Because it didn't. Like, how did you deal with that mentally? How did you get beyond that situation?
First of all, I didn't know I hit him.
You didn't know you hit him?
I didn't know, because we were going through a little tunnel. They had concrete walls. I was only going maybe 20 miles an hour.
Yeah, it was slow.
I was on the caution, and you're going through this narrow, like maze tunnel, and I felt a bump in the back of the car. I didn't see anyone run out in front of me. He was looking the opposite direction down the track. He wasn't looking in my direction. He was looking the opposite direction and came out and went right into the side of my car, and my left rear wheel hit him. Right? Yes. Now, I felt a bump, but I still, it wasn't a bump that I would have thought
was a body.
Yeah. And then halfway around the track, I'm going slow, and they come on the radio. The team came on the radio and says, "You hit a turn worker." I said, "No, I didn't." They said, "Yeah, you did. It's on TV." I said, "I never saw it." Then they explained to me, well, he came and came into the side of your car.
Correct.
And so after the race, I kept thinking, and they hadn't declared him passed until after the race. And I was questioned by the chief steward. I was questioned by, I think, the police, and they all saw that I wasn't at fault. So I was never charged or taken in front of any police or court.
Right. It was a track incident. So I don't know why you would have to fear to think about that happening anyway. But
I thought about him, and that is, he had a family.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the first thing I thought about. And then I saw the video, and it showed him, he coming into the side of the car, but it also showed him looking up the track instead of down the track.
Down the track, right?
Which those guys turn workers are pretty professional people, right? And what they're doing is pretty dangerous.
Dangerous,
right? And I don't know if someone was distracting him or what, but
just went the wrong way.
Yeah, and the part, but probably one of the most difficult parts is I never saw it.
Yeah, until after you saw it, like everybody.
I saw it in video,
right?
But I never saw it.
You never knew that you were in that situation when the situation occurred.
Exactly. When they said you hit somebody, I called them a liar.
Right.
On the radio.
Yeah.
I said, "No, I didn't." They said, "Yeah, you did." I said, "Where? And where did I hit it?" I'm trying to think back. And then they told me where it was. And then I remember this bump. I remember a bump, but it was so subtle. The bump. It was like, it wasn't even like a speed bump. It was
It wouldn't even register that that it was something more than something
that I hit. Right.
So let's go here, because Don also, like you said, he had his good intentions. He manages to come. Of course, Jack Roush gets in his feelings about the situation, but you're doing with what every driver aspires to do, which is get to the pinnacle of the sport. So it should have been no ill feelings, but it was. But Don gets you a meeting with Bernie. You get to go overseas again. You're back over here, finally in Formula One. So it's fair to say, first Black man ever in Formula One driving a Formula One car, right?
First ever.
Ever.
In history, right?
Right. Lewis would be the first to compete and be champion in Formula One.
But
so
you
was the first to drive.
When I did that, Lewis was 11 months old in diapers. He was 11 months old in diapers. And every time I see Lewis, I say to Lewis, "I've got some diapers for you."
Hey, Lewis said, "I filled him though. I finally filled him."
But I'm so proud of his, he didn't deal with the vile racism and hate and death threats that I dealt with. However,
he's dealt with some.
He's dealt with them.
Yeah, he's dealt with some. So do you feel like Bernie honestly was giving you an opportunity to be in Formula One, or maybe it was just a deal between two tycoons and let's see what kind of comes out of it business wise? Do you really feel like that? Because I know you said to get under the time, you got under by 1 second. I don't know what that time was. I know you said they want an Italian in the car. They did get one in there finally, but do you feel like there was really honestly something? Because Bernie was the man. So I don't understand where.
But see, and I don't. For one, it cost Bernie a lot of money to put me in that car.
Okay.
For me just to do the test, that was $100,000 out of Bernie's pocket. Not
100K.
100K. Just for me to do the test. I'm thinking that Bernie was waiting for a phone call from a multinational company to say, hey, we want him in your car. We want him in your team. And Bernie might have had a deal on the line. However, at that time when I did it, he had two Italian drivers, Riccardo Patrese and Elio De Angelis. And their primary sponsor was Olivetti, which was Italian. You're not I couldn't break through that.
Yeah.
Politically, that's a political ceiling that I couldn't break.
You couldn't break through.
And Bernie had a responsibility to keep his team going, and he couldn't tell Olivetti to go screw them.
To go screw yourself, right? Okay.
Right. So
big money thing. All right, man. Willie, there's so much more, but I do appreciate the time that you've given us. I know you're a businessman. I do want to thank you so much for the appreciation for even spending some of your time with me.
We'll do more.
Okay, roger that.
We'll do more.
Roger that.
This year, halfway through Formula One season, we'll do more.
Roger that. So, Will, I want to tell you again, thank you on behalf of everybody in my community, myself. My daughter wanted to say something, but I told her we next time, baby. She'll get there. We get her ready for car race season, man. I wish you the best. I thank the world of you and the world of what you've done and what you've been through. And so, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is another episode of Performance Talk. We will see Willy T Ribs again. It's not our last time. You all do what I say. Just build it and be great. All right. Peace.
Be great. Peace.
Thanks for watching another episode of Wolfpack Performance. Don't forget to check out some of my other content on Formula One and motorsports topics. Like, share, subscribe, and we go live on the weekends. See you soon.